This is Whitley Strieber, and you're listening to The Veritas Show.
And welcome back to The Veritas Show. This is Mel Fabregas. We're here with Lou Bolden, author of In League with a UFO and A Day with an Extraterrestrial. Great stuff so far. And I left a cliffhanger on purpose because we need a lot of time to discuss what's happening on the moon. And I think Lou is probably a person that we can ask a few questions. Sometimes when you left planet Earth, Lou, and you went to Uranus and other, is it Uranus or Neptune?
Uranus. And
on the way back here, you may have driven by, if you will, for lack of a better term, by the moon. What do you know about the moon that we don't know?
The moon is basically another planet, just a smaller version of what we have here on Earth. I can't really go into what's going on up there, but there are obviously aliens up there. There are some humans up there.
On both sides? The near side and the far side?
Yes.
And did we go to the moon?
Yes, we did.
I'm referring to Apollo. I'm not referring about the secret space program.
Right. Apollo did go to the moon. July 1969. It was all real.
Which is something that obviously John Lear and you may not agree with.
Correct.
What was the reason why, in your opinion, that we haven't returned after the next time we go back to the moon might be 50 years from the first time? Why?
Basically, the NASA part of it did end, but we still, we're up there. We're not officially up there. The reason we've had this delay is because they don't want... It was just a little bit more complicated to... for one, the human race is not ready for the moon or anywhere else.
How so? Because the moon seems, and I discussed this with John Lear, seems to be the command and control center where we've been observed. And, of course, the moon behaves differently than other moons and other planets, moons that rotate in their own axis. This moon does not rotate in its own axis. It rotates around the Earth and keeps the same position looking down to us, which to me sounds that it could be an artificially made object. Is it artificially made, Lou?
It's made out of rock and all the stuff that makes up a lot of these huge planets and moons in the solar system. The moon is not to keep an eye on us down here. It's keep an eye on some other entities.
I hear that too. The view from up there, it's much better than the view from down here.
Well, it's just that they're more free to operate up there, where down here it's just a little bit more complicated since we've got the technology that we have. Obviously, a couple of 100 years ago was no big deal, but the moon is not being used to observe humans. We are being observed right here. They don't have to observe us from up there.
And if that's the case, that we went there, and when Armstrong and Aldrin stepped on the moon, they were greeted and told, don't ever come back. That's what we were told by some people.
No, it wouldn't have been through them, their low level. It would have been through higher levels. Yeah.
More of a diplomatic fashion, if you will?
Exactly. You don't have just the common people negotiating protocol.
But then why, if they were here and they knew the intentions and they saw the rocket going up, Saturn rocket going up, why weren't we told that before? If they knew what our intentions were?
Because they wanted us to go up there. We didn't get the technology from nowhere. They gave us the technology to get there. It's what do you call it? A baby step. We are being prepped, humans, to go into not the galaxy, but into the solar system. And
but that sounds contradicting. If they're at one point saying you're not ready for the moon, but here you are giving us the technology to go to the moon.
Well,
why bother?
A little taste here and a little taste there. We were, it was a big step for man to get there, but financially we were not mature enough to go there. We're talking a lot of money.
Right.
I guess the powers that were running things didn't think it was appropriate to spend. It was just a taste. You don't, it's a first step. And in the scheme of things, even if it's 50 years later, it's maybe to us it's a long time, but it's not a long time at all.
But then if they said, whether it was via diplomatic way, don't come back, you're not ready, or whatever, then why?
That's just hearsay.
Sure, but why then was Apollo 12, 14, and so on allowed?
Well, that was just part of the first initiation, the whetting of the appetite. The knowledge was given to us that we are capable of going to another planet.
Right.
But the technology to do it big time and for other reasons was just not there. And it won't be there for a little bit longer.
So you're saying that Apollo 12 and 14 and so on truly happened also?
Well,
I mean, I had Edgar Mitchell on a few months ago, and we discussed it. And we got disconnected on the phone when I asked him if he had seen something that NASA was not telling us. So, just out of curiosity, if we were told not to go back, why did they allow us to go more than once, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Well, like I said earlier, we are still there, unofficially. Mm-hmm. We never did stop. But officially, when we can go there, set up colonies officially, hotels, gambling casinos, what have you, is still, it's, we had Lewis and Clark. They came out here. They spent some time with the Indians. They went up to Missouri. They did their thing. And after they did all their surveys and what have you, certain settlements moved in. And, technology is not instantaneous. Change of the way we visualize, see the world, see the galaxy, see the solar system is not instantaneous. It's slow for a purpose. You put into infrastructure. You propagandize. You bring up the bar a little bit. It's that type of thing.
How about the altered and smudged images on the moon, Mars, and maybe other planets? What's your take on that?
What do you mean?
The pictures that were taken. Well, first of all, let me just say something else. I think it was almost 800 canisters of film that were lost from Apollo. Were they really lost, Lou?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
We're only going to see what we're allowed to see.
So the best way to do this is by saying that they got lost.
Sure.
Okay. Same with.
And of course, that's so absurd. Why would someone lose such profound information? But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Now, do you believe in the fact that it was found in an abandoned or a closed McDonald's?
Yes, because that's where it was found.
Right.
That's where they put it.
It's a difficult story for me to grasp, to know that they put that information, if you will, from the most important moment in the history of humankind, that we're able to leave our planet to visit another object, and then this disappears. Same thing with the Clementine. images. We've only seen 10% out of the 90% that's out there. Why are they hiding 90% of the 1.8 million images, I believe there were?
Oh, well, because, let's say you've got a little family going here, you've got your little children, and you've got the adults. Do you share everything with the children? Will the children understand? Will they be upset? Will they even give a crap?
Well, if I'm the child and I'm paying for it, I would give a darn. So we are the children paying for it, don't you think?
Not really. No. Certainly we have this mindset that we have all this money. The government has this money. The government has this money because they tax the people. The things at these levels do not operate that way. I mean, they do in your local community where you've got property taxes to let the schools sponge off of. You got cigarette taxes. You've got, but when we're getting up into the
that's Black Ops. That's Black Ops. That's
Black
not
Ops.
money. Yeah.
They don't really necessarily operate off of taxpayer money. I mean, they can print their own money if need be.
I was just telling somebody the other day, Lou, about the $2.3 trillion lost or admitted to be lost days before September the 11th. My first job was at a grocery store when I was 17. I lost $20 and I was suspended for 1 week. If anybody lost $100 or more, they would probably be prosecuted by law. But these people lost $2.3 trillion and they kept their jobs. Almost as in sending a signal to the population saying, or to the government saying, hey, we lost $2.3 trillion. Nobody complain. We can do it again and again, right?
Well, yeah, we understand that the government wastes a lot of our money, and we still keep voting in the same people. Do we really care? If, we do talk about it, we do complain about it, but when we sit down to make our vote, we usually vote for the same people. But that's besides the point. We are focused most of the time on the wrong things.
Distracted.
Okay, distracted. And it works.
That's our intent, is what you're saying, to keep us distracted from what really is happening.
Well, don't you think that everyone's distracted fairly well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think the majority of the people are still on the Matrix. Anybody who listens to you and I right now are going to say, that's just a show for crazy people. How can they even believe that?
Exactly.
But that's okay. That's okay. I'm okay with that because we can't change everybody's mentality. They're going to have to do it by themselves. I used to be one of them. I used to criticize others who thought like I think now. And to me, that was part of the awakening, evolvement, and to have you here discussing these topics without both of us being ridiculed. But now I have a lot of questions from your fans, Lou. And one of them, all our verbal and non-verbal communications are monitored by the gods. I prefer to call them ETs. You said that. Lou, you and I, and this comes from me, had a similar background in that we both come from a Roman Catholic family. We went to a Catholic school and had our encounters with the nuns, that sort of thing. Did you ever discuss religion with the aliens?
Yes, and the only religion that exists is for us. And it's down here. It's just basically to, like I said earlier, to
keep us in check,
institutionalize us, to give us a focus on a particular idea, to basically a part of what this planet's all about. There is no religion as far as higher up on other. It's just part of the furniture on planet Earth, Earth-type planets.
Right.
And there are, billions of them. Standard procedure on most of the planets that are like Earth. I mean, there are many levels, like, we've got education, we've got we've got grade school, we have high school, we have college. You've got different levels of understanding, of awareness on different types of planets. Planet Earth is pretty much in the dark about everything.
People like me, and like most of our listeners who have an open mind and who would love to have contact, and we believe that we are ready to experience an uplift, if you will, in the way we see things. Now, are the aliens our creators, and do they consider themselves gods?
No, they are not gods, and they are not our creators. They have manipulated DNA. They have created our bodies. That's just a function. Just like an auto worker on an assembly plant, they put these cars together, the assembly people. The aliens put us together. They do not have anything to do with the soul. The soul is of a higher order, and it's dealt with by way up higher entities than what we have around here.
So do aliens believe in a soul creator? And who created the aliens, by the way?
Well, a lot of religions or a lot of ideas down here have the idea of a beginning and an end. There was no beginning, and there is no end. There was no beginning in the universe. There was no there was no Big Bang. There will not be a big collapse certain billion years from now because there's not enough mass, because they can't find their dark matter. Everything has always been this way. It's just that people in the 3D zone cannot conceptualize anything without a beginning or an ending. We need a beginning and we need an ending.
Yes.
That's a very low-level dimension idea.
Well, it's our concept of time and space.
Yeah, and there is no such thing as time. It's only a concept. It's only an idea. And space, yes, just plenty of space out there.
So were the beings you were in contact with, and I know they changed in the way they looked. Example, Milton, who looked like a regular, average 40-year-old, but then you saw him as how he looks like. Were the beings you were in contact with all the same? And if so, were they all the usual grays?
Absolutely not. Each being was very unique. Some more bizarre than the other.
But bizarre in our perspective.
Yes, in our perspective, but also in reality. I mean, there are so many levels and layers of higher beings, lower beings, and we're stuck with the 3D perspective, which really limits us in as far as understanding and grasping a lot of what's going on.
Right, and I'm guilty of that because I'm from here and I have my own perspective without having been exposed to what you haven't been exposed to. And people like you, this may sound trivial. Many speculate that just as we send probes to other planets, the Greys are biodrones sent here to do a job, and that's why they lack emotion. Others say they are living, feeling beings with a soul, just different than us. Can you give us your opinion on this?
Well, many of the Greys are basically just droids, machines, doing a monotonous job that no one else wants to do. The first contact, and in many cases the only contact that a lot of abductees will have would be through these types of machines.
Right.
Soulless, uncaring.
That was my question. No souls. No souls
no
for those.
No souls. They've got their job to do, and that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But a higher being can enter into anything. They can enter into one of these machines. They can create their own. They can just become a Grey if they wish to. So, if you're find yourself cornered by a gray, you don't know if it's just a plain Jane unthinking machine or if it's occupied by something higher. Not that it would matter.
Right, exactly. So they have the workers do the I don't want to call them dirty deeds, but they're sent like we send probes to other planets, like the ones we have on Mars now.
They're much more than probes. I mean, they would be much smarter than we are.
Of course.
And capable of making decisions, and they know exactly what they're going to do, and something should happen, they could handle it.
Well, because they have maybe millions of years of more advanced evolution, if you will, to create this.
As well, yeah, of course, there's no such thing as evolution, but we have a certain technology down here, and of course it increases every day. But that doesn't. It's not an evolution. It's just a stage that we're at this stage, and they bring us up to the next stage. But everything has already existed. I mean, when we had cowboys and Indians running around playing with bows and arrows and repeaters, there was space travel. There was people flying around in spaceships. Stuff has always existed. There's nothing new under the sun.
And by the way, when I say the word evolution, I don't use it in the Darwinian sense. I use it more, as you said, on a stage phase that you progress.
Sure. Yeah, bring in exactly progress. Progress.
Now, this question comes from someone you know. And you may know who he is. I'm not going to say his name. He asks about the critters. Critters are the, let me just get a little bit of a background for the listeners. Critters are the plasma or other energy creatures that live in our atmosphere and in space, and in my opinion make up about 80% of the UFO sightings. I used to think the big UFO groups did not consider this, but recently in an exchange with one of the main MUFON heads, she agreed with me that in her personal opinion, 50% or more of sightings are in fact critters. A remote viewing team that I sent to Venus gave me some interesting results on critters that I cannot share yet because the report was confidential. What happened is the team did not expect what they saw and are concerned, quote unquote. The problem was there was no way to send them to Venus without naming the target, but that was all. I guess they have preconceived ideas about conditions on Venus, as do most. So my question to Lou would be, what is your opinion on these critters? Do you know if they can directly communicate with us or are merely aware and curious, like watchers?
I'm not aware of any critters. I'm not sure where they're coming from, or who the questioner is, or where they're coming from.
Okay.
There are a slew of alien type beings that do come and go from planet Earth to other planets. Some legally, some illegally. But to call them critters, I don't know. Maybe all aliens are critters.
That takes me to the STS videos from Martin Stubbs. You know what I'm talking about, right?
No.
The videos that the space shuttle took where you can actually see craft moving around. There's the tether incident. There's the incident where one craft is moving to the left and then a flash of light appears and then a railgun goes up and the object moves to the right at an incredible speed that could only be if the craft turned into a plasma or a liquid, because otherwise they couldn't be able to remain physical. You know what I'm referring to?
There's alien ships all over the place. I mean, if someone turned a switch on and you could see them, everyone would have a heart attack. I mean, these beings are everywhere. They've got their nose into everything. Some of them are hostile, some are not.
Why are we trying to shoot them down? If that's what my analysis of that footage is and other experts. Well, I'm not an expert. I'm saying them.
Well, one thing, we can't shoot them down. We obviously can shoot at them. We do that all the time.
I'm referring to the video that comes supposedly from the railgun coming from Pine Gap, Australia.
Okay. I'm really not familiar with that, but...
Okay.
the fact is there are alien beings that are not supposed to be in this planet or around this planet. A lot of the stuff that we have on the moon and stuff that's also in orbit around this planet is to monitor some of these beings, their comings and goings, and relay some of this information to other.
You're talking about the multiple platforms that we have, not just the International Space Station, but we have a few more.
Oh, heck yeah. The International Space Station's just a little toy gadget up there to keep us excited about space.
Right. As John Lear says, the space shuttle leaves and they take 72 hours for rest and relaxation as opposed to and docking on the space station, but in reality they go to unload cargo at the other platforms.
Well, we have many ways to get stuff into space that most people are totally out of the loop on. We don't really need to even tinker with the toys that we are aware of. Mm-hmm. That's just for us to focus and get excited about space because, that's our next frontier. That's where the world economies will explode when we get full-blown into gear to get into the moon, then go to Mars, and then maybe build a few posts here and there.
Wouldn't that be great to spend our resources into something that's going to really help humankind as opposed to getting into endless wars?
Well, that's the next stage. It's already in the works.
Now, how about undersea bases? Did you ever visit any of them?
Yes. The underseas is still an area where you can do stuff that most humans don't have access to.
Right.
So any place that humans have no access or little access to, that's where most of it's going on. I mean, a couple hundred years ago, it was out in the open because there wasn't a lot of people around, and those who did run into such a thing would not have known what the hell they were looking at, so that it was no big deal. But yes, there is a huge population in certain places on this planet.
The Dulce Battle, 1979, Phil Schneider. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Did that really happen?
Refresh my memory.
Phil Schneider, geologist for a contractor or the military, was sent down in a hole.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, it did happen.
It did happen.
And the details that we got and how he got shot and he lost some digits and all that was true.
Well, I don't have all the details on that, but
basically what I'm trying to ask is, do you believe his story? Because everybody that knows the story knows that supposedly he was found suicided, or he committed suicide, actually. You don't want to say much about the story?
No, I don't.
Okay. How about, Lou, someone heard you say, this is the same person that knows you, someone heard you say the sun was pregnant. And right now, local space is pretty messed up with the lowest solar wind ever and the holes in the magnetic field of Earth. So, when is the sun due? And I guess it's a humorous question in a way.
Well, it's not like a 9-month deal. It's and I don't know if it's due anytime soon. But
what do you mean? What do you mean when you say the sun is pregnant?
Basically, the planets all came from the sun. They were all spit out from the sun, all the planets we have in the solar system. Everything we have in the solar system was birthed from the sun. And everything that we will have in the future in the solar system will be birthed from the sun.
So basically, it's almost
that's also true with moons. The gas giants that we call Jupiter, Saturn, and even Uranus and Neptune. They also produce moons.
What other planets aside from Earth are inhabited, Lou?
You're speaking on the solar system?
Yeah, in our solar system, yes.
Every single planet is inhabited, not specifically like Earth is inhabited. Every planet, every moon has beings that are on it, not necessarily cities and stuff like that. Some of the activity is underground inside certain caverns. There are human-type beings in certain planets, on certain moons. There's a lot of activity going on in the solar system, and we humans have zero knowledge about them. Because one thing, it would throw off the concepts that we had, that's been instilled in us.
In the majority of us, let's make it clear.
The majority, yes.
And I consider myself in the minority, and probably you too. By the way, speaking of the 11-year solar cycles, I always mention that September the 11th, 1990, was solar minimum, and President Bush 41 uttered the New World Order words during that speech. Then, exactly 11 years later, September the 11th, 2001, we had a solar maximum. Then, what do we expect September the 11th, 2012, or 2012? Do you have any information from Milton or your friends that you can share?
Well, I did go on record saying that it was 2013 that we need to be worried about.
Well, I was saying that nothing's going to happen in 2012 is what you're saying.
No, nothing that anyone's going to notice or be aware of. The vast majority will continue to be still asleep. Things happen every day, and most people are totally unaware of what's going on. 2012, the Mayan calendar and all that, niente. Nothing.
So, nothing. And the reason why I ask is because people say, it's going to be another Y2K. But if that's the case, then I just try to find the confluence of things that are happening. We have the Seed Vault in Norway being financed almost exclusively by the Vatican. And you can fit thousands and thousands of people there, too. We hear of the underground bases in the United States being built supposedly to keep the elite and keep the scientists so that when things get better, they can all come out.
That's all paranoia. All paranoia.
No.
The seed thing is absolutely, totally not relevant. We've got seeds all over the place, not just the Vatican. I mean, there are many vaults out there, and including the aliens. I mean, they can sprinkle seeds all over the place if they want to. It's not like we're going to lose our means for production, food production. It's not going to happen. As far as bases underground for the elite and what have you, well, yeah, there's certainly lots of bases underground, but they're not constructed for the elite. I mean, it's certainly. Back in when everyone was worried about 2000, you know how many farmers had built underground shelters for themselves? Yep. Yeah. For what? They wasted a lot of their time. It's just paranoia, propaganda, and means absolutely nothing.
Speaking of the Vatican, why would the Vatican spend so many millions of dollars in one of the largest telescopes in Arizona looking for allegedly wormwood? Do you know anything about that?
Well, they're wasting their time.
Really? You think?
There's no wormwood.
Well, that's how they call it in the Bible.
Yeah, well, the Bible is fiction. The Bible is metaphor. It's allegory. And those who don't understand metaphor and allegory have missed the whole story.
And how about the Vatican underground vaults that are not accessible to the public? What is it that they keep with so much security?
It's all pedophile stuff.
Hey, you said that. I didn't.
Oh, boy, they're going to come after me on that one.
Yeah, that's...
Just kidding.
In your opinion, how correct, Bob Dean and Dr. Stephen Greer and all those people, in your opinion, how correct are Bob Dean, Dr. Stephen Greer, Stephen Bassett, etc.? How close are they to the truth, Lou?
I think I will not comment.
Are you referring to all of them?
Yep. It's not for me to say.
Is my interpretation, am I going to take a chance here? Do you think that's disinformation that's coming out?
I will not comment.
Okay. All right. You said, quote, many ETs, and I'm going to try to move faster because we're running out of time, but I want to be able to ask you the questions that your fans have sent to me, even one that just came in about a minute ago. Quote, many ETs have thousands of millions of years on us. Don't you think that they could simply create or make any DNA they need? DNA is complex for us, but not for them. They do manipulate our DNA for us. They also use it on intermediate species, human, alien breeds. Unquote. How do you feel about that, Lou?
Well, they manipulate DNA basically for the reason I said earlier, when they're creating bodies for particular souls. Now, there are evil beings who are also doing this stuff, and there are good beings, and they have been cleared to do that, to use the DNA as they see fit.
And how about the supposed junk DNA that we have? Is there a purpose for that junk DNA that we call junk?
Well, there is a purpose for all DNA. Just because we haven't identified that particular purpose doesn't mean that it's junk.
Or the fact that we only use a small percentage of our brain.
We use all of our brain. And that's just simply not enough because it's a 3D brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you can only do so much with 3D. You've got to go up a little. You got to push the envelope to the 4th level, to the 5th, 6th, and 7th. Most humans are incapable of doing that.
Another one, something you said, quote, much of what goes on in the ship stays in the ship. Sometimes I have a clear understanding of everything I did, but when I try to put it on paper, can't make it happen, nor can I verbalize it. This person says, I'm familiar with this kind of phenomena. Question, what do you attribute this inability to recall? How do you internally rationalize it, or have you ever been filled in on the other details of this inability, quote unquote, to speak of the events?
I sometimes have to put it in those types of words because a lot of the stuff that I talk about is, I hate to put it this way, but dumbing it down, because even as it's dumbed down, it's preposterous for many people. The fantastic stuff that exists all around us and in, of course, these ships is just mind-boggling. And of course, to go there, you entered the world of the absurd.
Try us with one example.
Well, the sun being pregnant got people calling me. I had people who said, "Well, I believed what you were talking about until you mentioned that."
Well, but I think you may have said that not literally. What you probably meant to say was, yes, all these planets came out of the sun because there's infinite energy coming out of the sun. And
no, I meant it literally. The sun spits out the planets, literally. And of course, just such a statement puts me into the lunacy bin.
Then, to those who proclaim you're a lunatic by saying this, and for us by association, is there anything you can tell us here that might be not jeopardize you yourself, your loved ones, your life, but can be somewhat of a smoking gun for any skeptic out there that still wonders? What can you tell us?
A whole bunch, but I'm not.
Is there anything that may not jeopardize you that you can share, that it's not out of bounds?
And it's not because I'm concerned about being taken out. I'm not concerned at all for other reasons.
Okay. I noticed that Sleeper, and by the way, folks, that's the pseudonym that Lou used in the forums, mentioned that you have been dropped off in a small Italian town on October 7th, 1952. I think you answered the question. I would like to know what he meant by this exactly. Is this his birth date, or is there another explanation? I think you answered that at the beginning of the show. Am I right?
That was my birth date.
That was your birth date. Okay.
Yes.
And why do
that's when my body was born.
Right. And he has a second question. Why do you believe that you are not an Earth native? Do you have some corroborating information, perhaps from your parents?
Well, it's not that I believe that I'm not an Earth native. I mean, I came over here in a ship, and the ship remained for a couple of weeks. I was introduced to planet Earth, and then to the baby that I would become. That's not a belief. That's just what happened.
Here's another one. Quote, you also say that there is information that you cannot divulge. Just like what we were talking about a minute ago. It's hard to tell. Many other experiencers explain that we are going to be, quote-unquote, introduced on a planetary scale to the larger universe and other ETs societies soon. And you responded, Lou, I can say that there are elements that want to make a statement to the people of Earth that they so far have been kept in check. I know why, but the reason is not going to hold water for those thirsty for full disclosure. Question, who has kept these ET factions in check and why?
I can't say, but I also can say that disclosure will not happen. Period.
Okay, so this
not full disclosure.
Not full disclosure, meaning slow drip process?
Meaning it's always going to be a personal disclosure. You know, they take you aside and they do things with you. There's not going to be an awakening, and we're going to know that we are part of a galactic mankind type of deal. No.
Okay. You say there are disagreements, and I'm going to move rapidly with the questions. You say there are disagreements with ETs. Could you explain a bit more on what the disagreements are and why they occur and over what?
Well, there are many ETs that have been that are kind of a criminal element that have been on this planet for eons, and many of them have been removed, isolated, or destroyed, but they still do have offspring, and so it's an ongoing situation. We go to wars, and hello?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. And those who remained here, the offspring, are those the known as reptilians, or it could be anything?
Some of them, no, the reptilians, they're not part of what I've just spoken of. Okay.
Well, you don't think the Bush family is reptilian?
No.
Okay.
No, not even the Queen.
Really? Okay.
No.
So all that stuff is bunk.
Yep.
Okay. This one. I'm curious about your quote-unquote job. Can you say what job is? If not, then will you be able to say at some point? And you responded, a segment of my job is leaking info, helping raise the curtain a few notches. And there are elements in the ET ranks that don't want even that little bit out. The question is, why are there some, quote-unquote, some ETs who resist various kinds of info from leaking out in the public and becoming common knowledge? Could you expand a bit on this topic?
If people knew why we were here, it would almost be like having the answers to the test. Naturally, I've been out there talking about this stuff, giving the answers to the test, but the vast majority will not buy it. So I'm allowed to do it.
Now, why do you believe that you, or feel that you are in a privileged position to do that?
I was told.
By them?
Yeah.
All right. Someone asked Lou an interesting question about Lou's quote-unquote job in quote-unquote speaking out. Also, how do you know when your job is done? Lou responded, I'll get a pink slip, and you laughed about it, of course. They will pull me out dead or alive. The question, why do you believe that you will receive a quote-unquote pink slip to be put out either quote-unquote dead or alive? And what do you mean exactly? Why are you treated with hostility or life-threatening allusions for doing your quote-unquote job, even when you get approval to release information?
Oh, well, one thing, the only way off this planet is to die, expire, be killed, what have you. And eventually that's how I will get my pink slip.
And I heard you say somewhere that suicide doesn't count. For the mere suicide, it could be for health reasons or something else, but general suicide does not count. Is that correct?
Well, suicide is obviously a thing of desperation, and all suicides are basically they are judged by those who know what is going on for the person who commits suicide or attempts to commit suicide. We cannot escape planet Earth with suicide. They'll just reinsert us into another body if the reason was not acceptable. Yes, there are people who are terminally ill, who are not doing suicide as a selfish act. Other reasons that people choose to end their life, but that's determined by higher beings.
Someone told me that when you die, the soul goes to what's called the source, and then it gets recycled into the torment container. Does that make sense to you? This is a big area. I mean, it depends on the person, the soul, where they're going and why they're going. If they're moving up, there is no necessarily one area. It just depends on where you are going from here, and that will determine where you go. There is a main area for most people. A lot of people instantly go from here to another place, back on this planet or to another planet. What happens when somebody dies tomorrow of old age, natural causes? What happens to that soul at that moment? Where does it go to? Well, it depends on where the destination is, if it's going up or if it's going down. And I'm not talking about heaven and hell. I'm just talking about where it was integrity-wise. Right, but is there a second point where it stops and that decision is made? Or is that instantaneous? It goes into another planet, dimension, body? We instantly will go to another place of existence. Instantly, okay. It could be a planet. It could be some higher dimension. Okay. This one, quote, I like having my 3 squares a day, yet I don't recall ever eating or drinking while I was a possession of the aliens, unquote. Did you ever eat, drink, or sleep during any of your experiences? I know the wafers. Well, stuff that I haven't talked about yet. And, the account of the Dayward
terrestrial is just one facet.
Right, but did you ever drink or sleep, or is it because you don't exert energy when there's no gravity, erosion?
Inside a spaceship.
Yes. So you never drank or ate while in a spaceship because what you breathe or was sufficient for your body to function, even water?
One thing, food and drink, as we do it now, we do it because mostly out of necessity. Mm-hmm. Of course, some of us overdo it. But there is the pleasure element, and on other planets, you still consume food. Sometimes it's just for pleasure.
So, take me for example in your visit to Uranus. Tell me what the planet looks like, how people live, how society works.
I kind of went into a little detail in the book. I didn't really want to expand on it at this stage.
Oh, you mean extra than what you said in the book? Is that what you're saying?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So when you were returned, did you ever feel extremely hungry or sleepy from a long trip?
Oh, I don't know. Not any more than I usually do. I mean, you wake up, you're hungry. Sometimes you don't want to wake up.
And what happened during the time you were gone? You were supposedly at work, or you were supposedly sleeping. Did it ever occur to any of your relatives or your colleagues that you were not around and they wonder where you were?
Nope. I spend a lot of my days back then and even to this day, and no one knows where I am.
And time-wise, sometimes you feel like you're gone for days, but it's only a matter of minutes or hours. Is that still the case?
Rephrase that?
Okay. When you're, I don't want to use the word taken, but you're taken for a ride, if you will, with Milton or somebody else. And sometimes you feel that you are there for days, but when you come back, it may be minutes or hours. Is that still the case, or do you disappear for?
That's still the case.
So obviously they manipulate our concept of what we call time.
Well, we understand that time exists when in reality it doesn't. And when you enter a different element of dimension.
Mm-hmm. See, that's the part I want to try to understand. You'll leave for what seems to you to be 3-4 days, and then you come back and it's only 3 minutes. I'm trying to grasp and comprehend that.
Good luck.
Good luck trying to understand it.
Exactly.
Do you have a layman's explanation for the common man?
Yes. Time is an illusion.
Right, but if 5 days are happening to you when you're up there, and only 5 minutes are happening here, that's the part that I find a big disconnect.
And I can understand why.
And do you age 5 days?
You are existing in a 3-dimensional world. But when you move out of the 3-dimensional world, physics as we understand it, space-time baloney is all you have. Einstein was correct a little bit, but even he was unable to explain higher dimensions.
Were any amenities ever provided to you that indicate you were actually aboard a ship or craft?
You mean stuff that I could take home?
Yes.
I think I will not answer that one.
Oh, so what you said about what's in the craft stays in the craft, something may have actually fallen into your pocket, is what you're saying.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Leave it to our imagination. And there's a background on the following question. Sometimes it has been noted that abductees and contactees or other general experiencers notice that they have a quote-unquote wild ride with the ETs, but their spouse or significant other may recount they were sleeping in bed normally and in some rare cases see strange phenomena surrounding them. One exopolitical friend has told me that these kinds of situations may involve what are called VRS, virtual reality scenarios, meaning while their mind is experiencing something fantastic, their body is not. Sometimes I believe it may be evident that they never left their bedroom or car because they don't seem to have any hunger or bowel movements to take care of, maybe not even in sleep in some cases. Sometimes they wake up after an event rather than continuing with their lives from where they were left off. How often have you noticed that you, quote-unquote, wake up after an experience, and do you ever see any physical traces or having left your home, car, etc.?
Physical traces?
Yes.
No. There's usually none.
Totally clean. And if you're sleeping next to your wife, has he ever felt awkward, when one of those moments where you're gone, or is she just completely asleep?
Well, if I'm physically gone, she would never know.
Oh, so you leave in two different ways? You leave physically and non-physically sometimes?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because of what we talked about can we call it soul?
Yeah.
Now, astral projection and out-of-body experience. Is there a correlation between the soul leaving the body and those two terms?
Yes, the soul does leave the body.
Can you do that voluntarily by getting into a trance or in a state?
Only if you have an assistant.
Only if you have an assistant, but you cannot do it yourself.
You cannot do it yourself.
And when you say assistant, can you specify what you mean by assistant?
Well, an assistant is, some people call them spirit guides or angels or what have you.
What do you call it?
We all have somebody who's constantly around us or watching us. It would be such entities that will allow or disallow such a thing.
Now, is it only one, or can somebody have more than one? And
yes, you can have more than one.
More than one. I'm trying to grasp what a guide is. It's a form of energy, invisible energy to us humans.
It's not something that you would die and become a guide. It's
right.
Something that you would, and it's not like, we are babysitters and we're there all the time for the child we are caring for. Mm-hmm. A guide can come and go. A guide can be someone a family member, someone we've known in the past mm-hmm. that has passed away. They could be a higher being than just a regular soul.
And the word guide, it means guidance. So do they provide some kind of guidance? In other words, do they stop you not moving forward if there's a car coming and it's going to kill you?
Or they can push you in front of the car.
Or they can push you in front of the car.
They sure can.
Now, why would they do that? Because they need your soul somewhere else?
Maybe it was your time to go.
Right, interesting. Quote unquote, our probes only show what those in charge want shown, plus many of the cities on other planets that I have seen can easily be camouflaged. Could you explain what you mean by camouflage? How is it done according to you?
Very easily. I mean, we are stuck in 3 dimensions. Anything above that is a camouflage.
Because we can't see it.
Exactly.
That's why we need night vision goggles to see what's happening above our heads sometimes. Right?
If you see something above your head.
Right. Also, according to your how does your memory, your fantastic travels get blocked? When is it done and how is it done? Is it done with your foreknowledge or is it sprung onto you?
It's not done with my knowledge, at least not all the time. I'm just like everybody else. I get the curtain raised a little bit or not.
And that depends on what?
That depends on what I'm doing and what I'm supposed to be doing.
Now, is there anything different, special, or unique about our Earth and the life here in comparison to other habitable worlds out there?
Nothing. Nothing special and absolutely nothing unique. It's just like a cherry tree. You pull one cherry off the tree and you still got all the cherries up there. The cherries are all alike on that particular tree.
So there are more prison planets than, we're not the only prison planet.
Exactly. There are many.
And the purpose of being a prison planet, is it so that we can advance?
Yes.
So I'm sure these more advanced beings you came in contact with may have made mistakes in the past in order to advance to where they are now. Me, Mel, if I had a question to ask one of these beings, or you, Lou, I would ask just that. What can we learn from your mistakes in order to advance? Did you ever discuss this with them, Lou?
The advancement is very simple and extremely difficult. It's basic. Eliminate hate. Don't blame anybody for your problems. Now, love is the deal. All of us are capable of doing those things occasionally, but most of us keep falling off the turnip truck.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to stay focused, not be envious, not be hateful, give everybody the benefit of the doubt, because we're surrounded with people who don't do that.
Right.
And so
it's a defense mechanism.
We fall back into line. Those who are capable to stay focused and will move up.
But what happens to somebody, and I'm talking about this plane on Earth, somebody who wants to really advance and go and no ego, no hate, no selfishness, etc. But what happens if that person is so kind and giving that others take advantage of that person, and then the survival mechanism kicks in, and as you say, you fall off the turnip truck, but otherwise the person ceases to exist?
Well, that's a situation most of us fall into. We do not have the wherewithal to stay the course, and it's a slow process. It takes some people a long time to figure it out. But the universe is infinite. And we have this thing called time that does not exist, which means if it takes you 100 lifetimes to figure this out, then you're going to spend 100 lifetimes trying to figure it out. No one's going to shove it down your throat. It's got to come from the heart, and it's got to be real. We can't fake it. We can't bribe it. We can't buy it. We can't sell it. If it's not real, it ain't going up. It'll stay here, or it'll go down.
So what happens to somebody who lives their life, whether good or bad, but they learn their mistakes in their deathbed, and all of a sudden they, can I use the word reincarnate, or their soul is transferred to another container?
It's too late if you learned it on your deathbed. You've got to practice it.
But what happens when they go into another container? What is the reason for no recollection? If you remember your mistakes in the past, you will make them again.
Well, that would be kind of cheating. To really know somebody, or, if you know why you're doing the time, if you know the crime, obviously that would be easy to focus. But in the universe, they want purity. They don't want half-assed, well, okay, I'll try, give it another shot. I know I screwed up 50 times before, but this time I'm really into it. No, that's not going to cut it. To know if you're really sincere, you got to start with a blank slate.
So somebody who maybe grows up with a silver spoon and has a privileged life dies and all of a sudden is born in a third world country living in subpar conditions. There's a reason why that person was appointed, if you will, or assigned.
Happens all the time.
And now you cannot transfer your soul to a non-human, meaning an animal. Or can you?
You can't, but you can be transferred into an animal or into a blade of grass if they wish to put you there.
So a gorilla does not have a soul?
No. Nope.
All right. Another listener says, so much information is off limits and you will not comment on that, Lou. Like most areas in this field, there is little to no supporting evidence. It's hard for me to accept such information without some degree of evidence. Even a tidbit to that extent you may wish to ask, is there anything that he could add that could be verified, maybe even in the near future?
Well, you got prognosticators up the rear end. There's no shortage of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not one of them. Just pointing out there.
You know, Lou, our new slogan is disclosure one guest at a time. The mere fact that you are here with us may be a sign that disclosure is happening, or am I just speculating?
Hey, everyone has a shot at disclosure if they want it.
Okay, here's another one. Have you had any other experiences like the one you describe in your book, A Day with an Extraterrestrial? If so, can you tell us a bit more about that, please, or are you writing a book about it as well?
I have many, and I'm not presently writing about them. In the future, if I get off my keister, I might